Alright guys, we're back staring at my engine bay, and in this video we're going to talk about driving modes. Now the way that the driving modes are set up is different based on the actual car platform, so this isn't going to apply 100% to all B58 models. It's mostly going to apply to like the 1, 2, 3, and 4 series. So if you have a 5 series or like an X model, you might have additional options that we don't have on the lower models. But I'm going to explain how everything works, and a lot of the information will translate to your cars. So you'll just need to kind of understand the basics of your settings and customizations that you can make, and overall the same strategies will apply. Now, before we go too far, I do want to give a shout out to all of my channel sponsors. All of them are listed down in the description. So please go check them out for all of your B58 tuning and upgrade needs. These are the guys that support me, so the more that you support them, the more that they support the channel. And of course, if anything that I post has influenced your decision to buy with them or buy a specific part, please let the company know. Tag me in any posts you make, things like that. That helps me continue to find more partnerships in the future so we can continue to do more videos and test out more parts. All right, so let's talk about driving modes. A lot of people don't realize that on our cars we have 6 completely separate driving modes. So if you look down next to the shifter, you'll see, the sport mode rocker that has sport and eco pro, and then you also have the traction control button. And each of those will put you in a completely different mode. So we'll talk about what the different modes do and how you can pick one, particularly for racing and getting the best performance out of your car. Now keep in mind, none of these cars make more or less power than the other. What they primarily do is focus on adjusting how the inputs that you put into the car translate to the actual engine performance. So for example, under your accelerator pedal, you have a sensor that tells the throttle body how much to open. So different modes will adjust the sensitivity on how that accelerator pedal position translates to the throttle body. The same thing goes for the steering wheel. When you turn the steering wheel a certain amount, it takes that data and translates it to the actual electronic steering rack. And it gives you a certain amount of resistance, and it turns the wheels a certain angle, and all of that again can be adjusted electronically. So all of the settings and everything that you're changing when you go between different modes, it doesn't change the tune, it doesn't make more or less boost, it just changes how those electronic inputs translate to the electronic controls on the car. So the first one that we'll talk about is Eco Pro. And to get to that mode, you're going to go to that rocker and push down, and it'll take you into the Eco Pro mode. Now in my car, I have the digital dash, so it completely changes how the cluster looks. But even if you don't have the digital dash, it'll give you the same settings. Now, what it's primarily going to do is numb down the throttle as much as possible. So you're going to feel like you need to push the pedal really far to get the car to accelerate. And the goal is to prevent you from using much gas, just like the name indicates. It's supposed to be the most economical mode so that you can get good gas mileage, and it kind of nerfs how the car accelerates so that it prevents you from using extra gas that you don't need. Now, this is primarily good for highway use, and a lot of people have noticed, especially when you use the cruise control, sometimes the car will use a coasting feature. If you have an automatic trans, it can disengage the rest of the driveline so the car can literally just coast and use as little gas as possible in certain scenarios. So there are a lot of features there to help you get as much gas mileage as possible. Now keep in mind, if there's ever an issue where you need to make like a quick move or like an emergency maneuver, it will slow down the response of the car. So that's something that I don't really like, and I know a lot of people avoid Eco Pro for that reason. It's not like it's dangerous, plenty of people use it without an issue, but that's just something to consider. Now the next mode is comfort mode, and that's the default mode when you start the car. If you start the car in Eco Pro, then you'll need to push up on the selector so that it'll put you in comfort. Now this kind of puts everything in the middle position. If you have adaptive suspension, it'll set it to, the regular soft setting. Your throttle pedal will go back to the regular setting. Your steering will be soft, and basically all of your regular inputs will just translate to the base settings that BMW created. Now, if you press up on the rockers again, you go into sport mode, and this is where things start to get fun. So again, a lot of people think that this mode makes more boost or makes more power, and that's not the case. The primary thing that it does is it increases the sensitivity of your throttle pedal. So for example, in Eco Pro mode, when you have the throttle pushed halfway down, it might only give you like 25% of the power. In comfort mode, you have it halfway down and it'll actually give you 50% of the power. But in sport mode, it's hypersensitive. Like it almost gives you all of the power at 50% throttle. So you really don't have to push the pedal that hard to get majority of the acceleration that you need out of the engine. And it just gives you that quicker response that a lot of people are looking for. It also will stiffen up your suspension if you have adaptive suspension. If you're like me and you just have the base suspension, then nothing will change. So sometimes people think that it feels like a car is getting stiffer, but you'll really need to check your shocks to look for the sensors to know if you have adaptive suspension. There are so many things that are getting stiffer when you go into sport mode that it kind of can give your butt dyno the wrong idea as far as what's happening. So don't just trust the placebo effect. You'll need to check your car to see if it actually has adaptive suspension. And if you don't, nothing's getting stiffer under the suspension. It also makes the steering stiffer. So when you turn the car, you'll feel more resistance in the steering wheel. And then it will also enable the burbles. So you'll start hearing more like crackling and exhaust noise every time you lift off of the throttle. And that's basically it. Now, one thing is if you have the right package, like the M Sport package, it'll give you an option to configure your sport mode. So you can either do chassis or drivetrain. Drivetrain will enable the more sensitive throttle pedal as well as the burbles. And then chassis will enable the stiffer suspension and the stiffer steering wheel. So you can pick between those options if you only want one or the other, or you can just select everything. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to individually adjust the suspension and the throttle sensitivity and things like that, but it does give you a little bit of configuration, which is nice. Now after sport mode, if you press up again, it'll take you to sport plus, and when you go into this mode, it'll be the same as sport mode, but you won't have the adjustability to enable or disable drivetrain and chassis, and it will also relax your traction control. Now let's talk about traction control real quick. So there are two different things that you can adjust traction wise: traction control and stability control. Traction control is what actually prevents the tires from spinning. Stability control is what helps the car stay straight. So when you enable Sport Plus, it will relax your traction control, but keep stability control enabled. And what that means is it'll allow the wheels to spin a little bit, but it won't let the car completely go out of control. Now, I primarily use Sport Plus for straight line racing, especially when I'm next to somebody. The benefit is that it'll let the wheels spin a little bit. It'll let you put out, full power. If you have a manual transmission like me, it gives you that quicker throttle sensitivity. So every time you shift, it helps you get back into boost more quickly. And it won't let the car completely spin out because you still have stability control enabled. So it maintains some of the safeties of the car just so, you're not doing Mustang things and flying into the crowd, but you can still spin the tires, make a little smoke, and keep the car accelerating forward. Now the next two modes are enabled by pressing the traction control button above the sport mode rocker. So when you press that button once, it'll put you into traction mode. This is similar to Sport Plus, where Sport Plus is basically sport mode with relaxed traction. Pressing the traction control button will put you into traction mode, and that is comfort mode with relaxed traction. So you'll still have the regular throttle sensitivity and basically all of those comfort mode settings, but the tires will still allow some spin. Now, I think this is good for like canyon runs and back road driving, again, where you want the car to be able to slide a little bit and you want to push the limits, but you don't want it to completely spin out. The benefit here is the relaxed comfort pedal will give you a lot more control when you're going around turns. So for anybody that actually enjoys, doing that, you understand that having the super sensitive pedal in sport mode makes the car a little bit too twitchy. It's not very easy to balance the throttle pedal to maintain speed going around turns and really get some good power coming out of turns. So I really like using the traction mode just so that you can have really good control over the car to, just maintain really good corner speeds. Now the last mode is DSC Off, and this is enabled by pressing the traction control button for about 5 seconds, and then you'll see DSC Off come up on the screen. DSC Off disables your stability control. So now everything is on you. The car can completely spin out, it can slide sideways, you can drift it, you can do donuts, whatever you want. This is a good mode if you're on a road course or like a track where you have, all of the safety precautions in place and you're not as concerned about the car. You have a good runoff. If you go off the course, you'll just go into grass and things like that. But I really don't use this mode on public roads just because of how unpredictable it can be, especially if you're still learning the car and trying to set it up. This is something, again, that can make your car completely go sideways. So if you hit a wet patch on the road or a big bump that gets the wheels in the air, it can definitely do something unexpected. So please be very, very careful if you're using this mode. I know we all like to show that we're great drivers and we can control our car, but mistakes happen, so just be careful. Now, the big benefit of DSC Off is it gives you absolutely all of the power with no restrictions. So even though you have traction control relaxed in Sport Plus, it can still have some intervention if the car senses that the car is going too far sideways or getting too loose. So if you're looking to set a quarter-mile time or 60 to 130 time or 100 to 200 like draggy time, this is the mode that will absolutely make sure that you're hitting the best times possible. Another nice thing about DSC Off is it enables the E-diff. Our cars didn't come with an LSD from the factory, so when the E-diff engages, the car will use the brakes to help keep both tires spinning and prevent one wheel from spinning on the inside. So if you're on a road course, this is a really good mode to use because it'll let the car do whatever you tell it to. You have, plenty of runoff to go into the grass and things like that in case you do lose control of the car. And the E-diff will help you maintain power when you're coming out of turns. It won't let you necessarily accelerate as fast out of turns as you would be able to with a real LSD, but you won't have that inside wheel spinning that can cause the car to do something unexpected or cause you to lose control. The downside with traction mode and Sport Plus mode is even though you have traction control relaxed, there can still be some intervention if the car senses that, basically you're losing too much control. So sometimes you can feel it bog a little bit between shifts and things like that. And that's the car thinking that, because your car is now making 500 plus horsepower, it might be about to spin out. So as you add more power, you'll find that DSC Off will be more helpful in making sure that you can put all the power down without the car pulling it back, even when sometimes you do have traction, just the sensors see too much acceleration and think something's wrong. So those are all the modes of your car. And again, remember, they're all individual modes. They are 6 individual settings that you can enable or disable at any time. For example, if you go to Sport Plus and then long press the traction control button to enable DSC Off, it's not going to be different than enabling it from comfort mode. The modes don't combine or anything. It's its own separate mode. You can even tell if you go to DSC Off and then press up on the sport button, it'll take you to sport mode because it's its own mode. It's basically pulling you up from the comfort version of DSC Off to sport. You can't combine modes. You can't change all the individual settings, but you can make sure that you're using each setting to your advantage depending on your driving style. So hopefully this video helps. If you have any other questions or comments about your driving modes, leave them down below. Thanks.